Welcome to the first video in the CAD Apprentice course brought to you by Badgeable. In this first session, we're going to introduce you to Tinkercad, brought to you by Autodesk. We're going to show you how to create your first 3D design, and we're going to take you through some basic tools such as basic shapes, measurements, and adjusting those on a work plane. To get started, you're going to need to log in to your Tinkercad account, whether this has been provided by your teacher or that you've set up by yourself. And when you log in for the first time, you're going to see the screen in front of you. You're going to go here to where it says create your first 3D design and click. Here you can see the work plane. On the work plane, you will be able to create your first 3D model of a bubble wand. Up here on the left hand side, it says that my file is called Fantastic Crift. I'm going to rename this to my name and the product that I am designing, which is a bubble wand. You can navigate around the plane using this navigation cube. If you grab with your mouse and drag it, it allows you to spin this surface, the work plane, around in different directions. Here you have a home button, which will take you back to the home position of the work plane. And there are various other tools that we can use that we'll introduce when we need to. On the right hand side, we've got a drop down menu of various different tools, of which we're going to be using basic shapes. On the right hand side, there's a number of shapes that I could use to make my bubble wand. So let's have a look at what bubble wands look like. If I do a Google search, you can see that bubble wands come in all different shapes and sizes. From the long tubes where you can blow really large bubbles, to these small handheld bubble wands with various different shapes and sizes. Although bubbles typically are always round, when air is blown through the bubble wand, we can create different shapes initially before the bubble becomes a sphere. So what we're going to do today is to create a creative bubble wand design using various different tools and shapes that will look like one of these. On the right hand side, there's a number of tools that I can choose. For today's first video, I'm going to introduce this cylinder here. This is going to be the handle of my bubble wand. On the pop-up, you can see that I can adjust the number of sides and the bevel and the number of segments. If I scroll in using the middle mouse button, you will see that my cylinder is not perfectly circular, and I can slide the number of sides up to make the surface edge smoother. Likewise, the edge of the cylinder is quite sharp, and I can adjust this by sliding the bevel, which adds what I would call a chamfer to the product. I'm going to leave this at 0 for now. If I hover over any of these white squares, I can see a dimension that pops up. This one is 20, and this one is 19.98 and 19.99 in dimension. I'm going to grab and slide this dimension down manually, but I could also click on this box and type a number in. I need to decide how long the handle of my wand is going to be. So let's think how I could use measurements here. What part of the body could I measure to make the handle of the wand the right size? That's right, you could measure your hand. So I'm going to measure my hand, and the width of my hand is 12 centimeters. However, yours might be smaller. I'm going to enter in the measurement of 120 millimeters, which is 12 centimeters, and use my mouse to scroll out. As you can see, this wand is now the right length, but it looks rather thick. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to get the handle of the wand to lie down on the printer bed. I can do this by clicking on any of these arrows and adjusting it manually. And as you can see, it snaps to useful angles, such as 45 degrees or 90 degrees. And 90 degrees will lie it on the bed perfectly. What I'm now going to do is bring the handle down onto the work plane. I'm using my mouse button to adjust my positional view. And as you can see, there's a black arrow just below the cylinder. I'm going to slide it down until I can see that the measurement, which is currently at 8 millimeters, hits 0. And there we have it. The handle of my bubble wand is now sat on the workplane. Perfect. I now need to adjust the dimension of the handle itself. To do this again, I can adjust these numbers here. I'm going to click on this dimension, and I feel that 4 millimeters might be an appropriate size. So I'm going to type in 4 and hit enter. Likewise, I'm going to click on the height now, and again, I'm going to adjust this to be 4 and hit enter. And I now have a bubble wand handle that is 4 millimeters in diameter and 120 millimeters in length. If I now scroll back out, what I've done so far is I've used a basic shape, I've brought it onto the workplane, I have adjusted its measurements, I have placed it to sit on the workplane, and the measurements are based on a real part of the body, which is the hand. I'm now ready to move on to the next step. Move to video 2 next.